Yeah, our first December show means 4. I think we'll get like a couple days in February, maybe. Give us like a couple days in February.
Keep you from wanting to unalive yourself.
No. Keeps the state green, Danny. That's what that. Yeah. That's what we have to say. Is that it keeps the state green.
That's why Alaska has the highest suicide rate, because they wanted to keep it green.
Well, no, it's because it's dark there for half the year. You know, like the sun just doesn't even come up, and there's like no way out.
I wonder, do you get like eternally happier when it stays sunny for like 3 days straight?
Yeah. Have you ever watched? Live to 100. I think it's Live to 100 on Netflix. It's about Blue Zones. Blue Zones. This guy who I'm not sure how he sustains this lifestyle, but he basically has this documentary where he went and he started looking at all of these pockets around the world where centenarians live, like people live to 100. Far more common than any other places in the world. And he went and did this documentary about how their lifestyles lead to, long life and living to 100. And he goes through like all of these reasons, and a lot of it is dietary. Like they don't eat a lot of processed foods. They don't eat a lot of red meat. It's a largely vegetable-based and seafood-based diets that they have. They have like active lifestyles. They have social lifestyles where they're around family and friends a lot more. Whether it's like living in some more remote places where you're having to walk up like mountains and high like stairs throughout the course of your life, keeps you active, keeps you in better health, right? Also, they all live pretty close to the damn equator.
Oh,
that's another thing.
The sun.
Like, it's like all of them, one's in Okinawa, Japan, one's in Greece, another one's in Italy. You have one in Loma Linda, California, in Southern California. It's like, oh, yeah, I see this. Like, none of them are in Alaska.
Siberia, Alaska.
No. All of them are in places where the weather tends to be pretty dang nice. It's weird how that works out.
Almost like there's a direct correlation.
Yeah, but he goes, it's actually really cool because you look through it and he like basically breaks it all down on what all of the places have in common and where they all differ and what kind of are the keys to long life. But this guy, he's a really interesting guy because like he starts it out by like introducing who he is. And like in college, he rode his bike across every continent. It's like, how do you end college and that's what you do? Like, you come from money? Like, how is that the plan to where you're like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to ride my bike across every single continent in the world. Okay, go ahead and do it, bro.
You know what? I actually know somebody who ran a marathon on every continent.
Really?
Right out of college. Yeah, actually, you might know her. Kristen Peak, who works for Yahoo Sports. She's a college basketball and draft class kind of guru for Yahoo Sports. Yeah, she ran a marathon on every continent.
Wow. Yeah. That seems like something. I wouldn't want to run a marathon on any continent.
No, I wouldn't either.
Let alone on every single one. That's crazy.
Crazy, right?
Like, I see those stories of the people who, like, they run a marathon a day and try, like, do these super marathon things on every continent. Like, they'll run one. It's nuts.
What?
Like, they just run a marathon, hop on a plane, go somewhere else. They do.
Have you ever seen what somebody's legs and feet look like after a marathon?
Yeah. My wife has run several marathons.
It's terrifying looking.
Yeah, in just the training and preparation and the ramp up and the tapering, it doesn't make sense as to why you can or would do something like that.
Yeah, no, I want to do it once.
Nope.
I want to complete one marathon as part of an Ironman, and that is it.
I think that, you're going to try an Ironman?
Yeah, I was on pace for one when I was in the military, but, obviously everything exploded.
I feel like your current body would not be conducive to that.
No, and that's part of the whole point of getting things right, so that I can start losing weight and training again.
Running a marathon, I've never seen anybody that like ends the marathon and they're like,
I want to do that again.
I feel good. No, they like people are like, oh, I'll do that again. It's like they never feel good about it.
No,
like you always look like you want to die.
Mm-hmm.
You look like you're close to it right now. I'm sure that you go ahead and do it again. My wife and I have had this conversation a lot. I don't get just different strokes for different folks.
Look, like I said, one is all that I've ever wanted to do.
The runner's high is something that I don't quite subscribe to.
No?
No,
Don't
how
believe
like
in it?
when
Like
you're
it's a
running,
myth,
you're like, oh yeah, this is great. I've never felt that.
Really? Not once?
No.
I can't say that it's something I've had a ton of times, but
Mm-mm.
yeah, I've had it before.
Mm-mm.
You're like, oh man, this is good.
No. Like there's days where you feel good when you're running, but maybe I'm just not running the right way because I just always am like, God, I'm glad that's over. Me and running do not. Nope. Don't do it. Don't do it. All right. Anyway.
Yeah.
That's
sweet marathon.
That's living to 100.
Yeah.
That's living to 100. Rust, what's your key? Jeff Rust here.
Tito's.
There you go. Freshly shorn Jeff Rust.
You know what? That is something that they do have in the Blue Zones documentary there.
The wine.
Yeah, you drink. Drinking is not like everything in moderation, obviously. They always have to qualify that.
Yeah.
You know?
Moderation.
It means different things to different people.
Does it?
Sure.
Tell me more.
I don't think it does.
Hey, what's
Tell me
moderate
more.
for you might be different than what's moderate for me.
Yeah. Hey.
Right?
Yeah. Don't rain on my parade.
It's all subjective.
This is what we're doing.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that subjective, but
sure it is.
I think it's called tolerance for a reason. Yeah, Blue Zones, man. It's crazy though. Seeing people that live to 100 and like the people that they're interviewed. There's one guy who's like in Central America, and he was the one person that I looked at and when watching that documentary, and I was like, that guy actually looks like he's living a good life. Like he still is like a rancher, and he was down there, and the guy who's doing the documentary goes down, he meets with this guy, and this dude like rides up on a horse, and he looks like he's like in his 70s. And he's just talking to him, and he says like on the documentary, he's like, I spent like a half a day with the guy, and I said, so I'm here to meet, so-and-so who's 100 years old. And he's like, yeah, that's me. You've been talking to him. Dude looks like, he honestly looks like he's 70. Most of the other people that are 100 in that documentary, they look like they're 100. And there's a part of me that's like, I don't know. I think that's a good run. I'd be good. Like, I'd be really good. Like, most of them, I'm like, yeah, you're just hanging on.
I remember
hanging on.
I showed up. I didn't show up. I was invited to a party for my then girlfriend's grandmother, who was 97.
Yeah.
She looked maybe 65.
See, that's crazy.
It was the most insane thing I'd ever seen. And genetically, that's how it looked. Like her mom, I think at the time was 58, 59, almost 60.
Yeah.
Looked like she's maybe 40.
Wow.
Like it was like, oh.
Okay.
Oh, so that's like just
good
genes in your blood.
Good genes.
Because her dad looked 70.
Yeah.
And he was 52.
What's crazy is that they did revisit to Okinawa, and they're like, yeah, Okinawa went from like this dense population of people living to 100 and being like a vibrant blue zone to then the city started growing. More businesses started coming in. More processed foods, more and it's dropping faster than any other part of the world.
Yeah,
Crazy.
U.S. military installation will do that.
It's crazy. Yeah. So live to 100 if you want to. If not, Jeff Rust has got a great plan for you. You'll get up there to like 80. I feel like you'll be 80.
Fingers crossed.
I feel like you'll be 80. I think that's a good run.
Yeah.
I think that's the number.
80 is a good run.
80 is a good run.
Yeah.
It's a good. I think that's. I mean, I'd be happy with 80.
Oh, I've always
happy with 80.
Look, you say 80. I've always joked, semi-joking, and said if I make it past 60, it's a win.
Yeah.
And look, I know that sounds incredibly dark.
Yeah.
But also, like, there's literally a half dozen times in my life where I should have died.
I wonder how many
how
many people cut their lives short being sports fans.
I would imagine it's probably pretty high.
You know?
Yeah, I'm sure it takes some years off. Stress, frustration.
But it takes a lot off. Well, hell.
But also joy. I guess it depends on what sports fans or what sports teams you're a fan of.
Either
maybe being a bandwagon fan is the right way to go because it's just nothing but joy.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, like both sides of the Pac-12 championship game, you got decades cut off your life. If you're a Husky fan watching this season.
Oh God.
You know, you're sitting there and all of a sudden, like you're like, are we gonna lose this game?
The gripping every single week had to be tough.
This season alone for Washington fans, it's giving you great euphoria, and probably you're on cloud 9.
Is it euphoria?
But also you're like, oh my God, this is miserable.
Or is it relief?
I think it's euphoria when you pull those games out. When you win those games, it's euphoric. It's
All coming together.
Yeah, and like at the beginning of the Pac-12 championship game, they were probably sitting there like, you know what? Yeah, this is going to be the one. We're finally putting it all together here, and then here comes Oregon coming right back, and then they're like, no, it's not going to happen. The stress isn't going to be here. You could feel the tension in Allegiant Stadium on Friday night.
Mm-hmm.
Turned out they were fine. They're fine after that. Then that's where the euphoria kicks in, and you everything is good. Oregon fans, that cut 20 years off your life watching that game.
And then another 10 more, and you found out Liberty was your bowl opponent.
Yeah.
I wonder if euphoria like actually is actually good for you. You know what I mean? And like medically, is it good for you to feel like that good? You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I think it is. I think it's good for you. Maybe not too much of it.
Just
like
all the dopamine just flooding your body.
It's not good to take ecstasy every day of your life.
That's kind of what the point of what I'm getting at. Like,
yeah, but
even if it wasn't like artificial, like drug induced, like just if you were just like things were euphoric for you for a long period of time because everything was going your way.
Yeah, I think that people will live a long time doing that.
You think so?
Yeah.
I always wondered that. It's kind of weird one.
I think so. But everything in moderation, like I guess euphoria and with rust, Tito's as well.
I don't think it's euphoria,
which can lead to euphoria.
I think it's a blood alcohol.
Yeah. See, like this TJ P1 Husky fan beating Oregon twice in 1 year, going 13-0 the last year of the Pac-12 is the greatest sports moment of this Husky fan's life. Yeah, it's euphoric right now. Did the game actually take some years off? Probably. Did the 8 weeks leading up? Probably. But hey, here you are, feeling good. That's a Vancouver Ford text line, 503-864-6326. Your dollar goes further at Vancouver Ford. They treat you right before, during, and after the sale. Visit them online at vancouverford.com. We will break the Pac-12 championship game down every which way, up, down, left, right. We got to get to all of it because, boy, that was a doozy, folks. That was a great football game.
It was.
In Las Vegas. And the atmosphere was incredible. And we said farewell to the Pac-12, which was kind of sad, like that sad picture of all the mascots piled up together, and then you had Butch T. Cougar and Benny the Beaver packed in the middle, just kind of looking around. Everybody else had a home to go to.
Yeah, that's kind of weird, right?
That was weird. It was a weird vibe, but it was also really cool to see every fan base was represented at the Pac-12 championship game. I saw some Beaver fans were there. Saw a lot of Utah and Cal fans for some reason.
Cal having fans.
Yeah, they were there. But I saw members of every Pac-12 fan base at the Pac-12 championship game, which that's
pretty cool.
It was mostly Ducks and Huskies, and rightfully so. Mm-hmm. The environment, it was incredible. Like you can't ask for a better end to the Pac-12 with that place rocking the way that it was, because it was a big game and the atmosphere made it feel that way.
And it was tight.
It was so cool.
You had a real game.
Yeah, you did.
You get a blowout one way or another.
Yep.
I mean, it's fun for one side, but
yeah,
it comes down to the wire.
We got a ton that we need to get to because it's not just Pac-12 championship game. We also have got to get the portal is open. Not great news for Beef fans that are out there today with Aiden Childs entering the portal, as we heard in Russ' update. You got more staffers leaving and joining Jonathan Smith at Michigan State. It appears that Aiden Childs is going to join Jonathan Smith at Michigan State. We got a ton of college football today. We'll go through most of conference championship weekend. Some of them we won't. Looking at you, Tulane and SMU. But the Pac-12 championship game, we'll have a lot on that. And we got to start this show with, look, the sports machine, it turns out an absolute monster yesterday for us. 13-0 and not enough to get in the top four. Did the committee get it right? This is Danny and Dusty on 1080 The Fan. 13-0 Big Ten champion Michigan Wolverines are the number 1 seed. Number 2 seed, undefeated out of the Pac-12, the first team ever to go through the Pac-12 slate, unbeaten, the Washington Huskies. The 3rd seed is the Big 12 champion, SEC-bound Texas Longhorns, after absolutely taking Oklahoma State to the woodshed. And then the 4 seed, which was a surprise to some, I'm not sure how surprising it should have been, though, was number 4 Alabama, 12-1, their lone loss of the season, a double-digit loss to the Texas Longhorns, but got back on the right track after that game, and that was their only blemish as they finished off Georgia, ending the Bulldogs' 29-game win streak in a 27-24 victory in the SEC championship game. But the drama comes with the undefeated ACC champs, Florida State, which took care of their work in the ACC championship game as they beat Louisville 16-6 in what was a hard game to watch.
Did you attempt to watch
I watched
that?
all of it.
Oh, God, why?
Because I wanted to see with my own eyes
how bad Florida State is?
Which I don't believe a lot of people are doing that have an issue with Florida State being left out. I wanted to see what Florida State was, truly. Like at this point in the year, they're not with their starting quarterback. Hell, they weren't even with their backup quarterback.
Nope.
They were with a 3rd-string quarterback, and their defense is good.
Yes.
But their offense would get the floor mopped with any of
those
the 4 teams that are in the college football playoff. And they are on the outside looking in. They go 13-0 this season. They become the first Power 5 team to ever go undefeated and be left out of the college football playoff.
You don't matter, UCF.
No. Well, they weren't a Power 5 team.
Power
5. Like,
yeah.
the Central Florida was. Florida State is. They should be a part of this. But
they earned the right to go get the crap kicked out of them. They did.
I don't think they did.
Oh?
Because, no, if you listen to the committee, and this is the thing, is like, whatever you think about the committee, if you listen to what they have said since 2014, they have been consistent with it. It's not the most deserving teams that go. And they are very blunt with that. It's not who deserves to be there. Their job is to put the 4 best teams into the college football playoff. And they did, because without Jordan Travis, Florida State isn't one of the 4 best teams in the country. And that's why I watched the entirety of the ACC championship game and watched them limp their way to a 16-6 victory. Their defense is really good. They are really good. And this isn't to say that I don't feel for Florida State. And I loved what Mike Norvell said, their head coach, afterwards, where Mike Norvell said, like, what's the point of playing a tough schedule? What's the point of playing LSU at the beginning of the year, playing Florida at the end of the year? If we have 2 Power 5 teams, we schedule hard, we go through our Power 5 conference schedule, and we win, and we're not in. The reality of it is, though, they're not one of the 4 best teams without Jordan Travis, because it's the most important position in all of sports, and he's really damn good. And everywhere else, offensively, it takes a massive step back. And if your job is to put the 4 best teams in and have competitive playoff, I think the committee did it.
How many times, though, have we seen this with backup quarterbacks at Alabama, at Ohio State, at Michigan?
Okay, and in that, so you're talking about the, was it JT Barrett got hurt, Cardale Jones comes in?
I think there's 5 different instances.
Do you remember the score of that Big Ten championship game?
Was it 55-10?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not 16-6, where if you watched Florida State, you said, that ain't it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in that's the reality. And it sucks. And Jordan Travis, what he tweeted out is accurate and sad at the same time, where he said, I wish I would have broken my leg earlier so everybody could see what these guys are. Like, that is gut-wrenching to see.
Because he clearly thinks this is all on him.
Well, yeah, I guess. But what I think it is, and why it's gut-wrenching to me, is that Florida State probably does get in if they're saying this is an 8-week injury, and if he gets hurt a month earlier, right? And the committee can sit there and they could say, well, hey, they won, 6 games without Jordan Travis, and he's probably going to be back. He's going to be back for the playoff. Like, and then you can say, with their best player on their entire roster in the most important position in all of sports at quarterback, they're going to have that guy back, right?
And my additional pushback on this is Alabama has their starting quarterback in Milroe, who struggled and needed a 4th and 31 miracle to beat 6-6 Auburn. So you can find these instances everywhere of like, well, they have their starting quarterback and they couldn't get it done. So again, why aren't they getting the opportunity? It's very. It feels like the committee is going full Oracle. They know what's going to happen. Really? You knew TCU was going to hang, 58, 56 points on Michigan? You knew that?
But with your eyes, did you say Florida State was better than Alabama or Texas?
No, not right now, but I still look at them and go, but I still look, they earned the opportunity because if you had gone a week before, Alabama didn't earn the opportunity.
And this is why it is the 4 best, not the 4 deserving. And they tell you that all the time. Like they tell you that every single week.
Honestly, if that were the case, then Georgia would be in.
I don't believe though, and I don't think that because I saw Texas too, which Texas looks really damn good. Alabama looked really damn good in that game against Georgia, and they ended their 29-game streak. And look, the ACC of the Power 5 conferences, it was the 5th best conference this year. And I think that the SEC love is a little bit too much at times, but I think that they got the 4 best teams right now. I think they do. I have a problem with the committee is like, if that's your reasoning, don't put Florida State at 5.
Yeah, no, put them at 9.
Put them where you believe that they are. Because
why are they at 5? Because what's the whole point of them being at 5 and saying, oh, no, you were the first one out? No, you're just not good enough. Put them behind Oregon.
Well, and somebody made the point of, sandwiching them in between Alabama and Georgia. So you're saying that Florida State isn't as good as Bama, but they're better than Georgia?
It's like, you don't believe that.
Yeah.
No, they don't believe that. They don't believe that. I don't believe that they feel that this Florida State team is better than Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon.
I don't think they think they're better. No.
I don't think they're better than any of those teams in the committee's minds.
Like I said, they should have been 8, 9, 10, like in that range. That range. Hell, they might need to put them behind Penn State at 10.
And that's what I have an issue with, right? And then the other issue I have is that now the SEC spin out of this because, and this is also what the committee does, is like they go, and I thought Reese Davis did a really good job of, and he is a very much so an SEC honk, and we know this. He went to Alabama. He loves him some SEC, but I thought he did a really good job of explaining on the reveal yesterday the committee's process. They go 1 through 3, and if those 1 through 3 are solid, then they're in. They don't have to have any conversation about that. Their conversation was about 4 and 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who deserves to be in at 4? And I think that they clearly said, like, Texas ahead of Alabama, rightfully so.
Head to head.
Yeah, and even if that was in week 2, right, you can't put one in and not the other.
Head to head.
Yeah, you still have it, and you can just go, it's right there in front of your eyes. And they did it convincingly then. Mm-hmm. And then what they did in the Big 12 championship game, like it was
route
early and often, 350 yards in the first half for
Quinn Ewers is pretty good.
But if you look at that and you say, all right, so this thing was between Bama and Florida State then in their minds, Bama looks better. Bama looked better in the final week, in the rivalry week. You know, they played Auburn on the road, right? And they're gonna say that that's why that game was close. They've given us the BS that helped and benefited Florida State when they struggled against Miami, right? When Boo Corrigan said, hey, rivalry games, they get close. Mm-hmm. We know that, that's not a clear indicator when you're in a rivalry game of how good a team is or how bad a team is. And you're sitting there and you're like, okay.
Well, if that matters, Alabama, Georgia, 3-point game.
3-point game, right? Yeah. I have and that's why my issue is with Florida State at 5. It's not that Florida State in at 4. And I feel for every Florida State fan, and I get why they are upset. Like, you go 13-0 and you're like, hey, we deserve to be there. That's not the committee's job.
Deserve's got nothing to do with it.
And I
disagree with that entirely, but that's what they're saying.
Well, what? What do you disagree with?
That they're saying deserve's got nothing to do with it.
Oh, well, no, but that's why the committee was formed, is to put the 4 best in. Like that, and the 4 best and the 4 deserving can be different things. We're seeing this in front of our own eyes. And a lot of it has to do with Jordan Travis. And I feel bad for him. I feel bad for, their coaching staff, all the players. Their AD came out, and I love the fact that they threw shade at the committee. They threw shade at college football in the entire process, because it does deserve to be criticized right now. It really does. But what really bothers me is the SEC spin zone out of this being, do you hear what Feinbaum has been saying and what the SEC rallying cry is?
No.
Well, this could have all been avoided, but it's the ACC's fault. It's the Pac-12's fault. It's the Big Ten's fault.
You're kidding me.
No, yeah. They're saying that those 3 conference commissioners could have had the opportunity to put the 12-team playoff in for this year, and they're the ones that chose not to.
Oh, God.
So they're like spinning it back on the ACC and Florida State like it's somehow their fault. No. This 4-team playoff sucks. That's why I'm excited for 12.
Mm-hmm.
I hate it for Florida State. I do. I hate it for Florida State.
Next year, we'll be complaining about the seeding. That's what we'll be complaining about.
Yeah, but you know what? We're not going to be complaining on who's in and who's out. Because
the 13th team will be whining, but it's like at that point in time, there's 12 teams. Shut up and make it.
Yeah, you know what? My response to that, the college football playoff at 13th has LSU right now.
That'd be funny.
LSU.
That's ultimately funny.
Don't lose 3 games, LSU.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and then you could just throw up your middle finger and say, go take a hike.
Yeah.
Right now, there is legit gripe by Florida State, and I understand it. But I do believe that the committee had a really tough job, and I think they did right by what the product will be in the college football playoff. I think Washington had every bit of a case for being the number 1 overall seed.
I do too.
I think that what they were
4
able to
top
do,
25 wins. 5 top 25
Yep.
wins, and twice against a top 10 team.
Yep.
And I would say 3 on the road, 4 on the road.
And you did it in a different way in the 2 times that you beat Oregon, and you beat them. You beat them, even though, like I felt in the first one, we'll talk about that Pac-12 championship game a lot today, but I felt like the first one, Oregon outplayed Washington, but Washington won because of critical mistakes that Oregon made. The second time they played, nope. Washington beat them physically, schematically. They won every phase of that game.
Yep.
They won every phase of that game. They should be in the Rose Bowl. And Michigan chose to go to the Rose Bowl because they didn't want Alabama to have a de facto home game playing in Louisiana, and going down there. But now you're sending Washington all the way to Louisiana, which Texas way closer.
Yeah.
Right? Dems the breaks, though. Washington, they have a case for being the number 1 overall seed. And if Georgia would have won, how great would it have been, right? The Rose Bowl would have been Michigan and UW, Big Ten, Pac-12 in the final.
One more time.
Rose Bowl as we know it. And it would have been a playoff game. And then the Sugar Bowl would have been Florida State taking on Georgia. Like that giddy up, because you hand Alabama their second loss. The fact that Ohio State didn't even play in conference championship weekend, the fact that Oregon had already had a second loss, then you're sitting there and you have no case for anybody else. You have no case for anybody else but Florida State to be the number 4 seed.
Because nobody else was able to live up to it.
Yeah, because then it takes deserving and best, and it's not a conversation anymore. So I think the committee did it right. I think they did it right. It doesn't have to sit well with me. It doesn't have to sit well with you. But
I don't like it.
I think they got the 4 best teams. No, you don't. And you know what? That's why sports are great. It's because we don't have to like it. Just committees, man. Committees. 503-864-6326. That is the Vancouver Ford text line. Let's get to some of your feedback on this. We'll throw up a poll at Danny and Dusty on Twitter as well. Did the committee get it right? First is the Big Kahuna Sports Center.
Hamburgers, the cornerstone of any nutritious breakfast. Now, from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
This update brought to you by Toro Mexican Kitchen. Transport yourself to Baja, Mexico with delicious regional dishes and cocktails. Book your table today at toropdx.com. First on The Fan, we now know the bowl opponents for Oregon and Oregon State. The number 8 Ducks will face number 23 Liberty in the Fiesta Bowl on New Year's Day, while the number 19 Beavers get 16th ranked Notre Dame in the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl on December 29th. Oregon head coach Dan Lanning says Bo Nix will play in the bowl game. As for the Beavers, quarterback Aiden Childs is headed to the transfer portal, according to 24/7 Sports' Brandon Huffman. He's expected to follow Jonathan Smith to Michigan State. Oregon safety Damon David also reportedly entering the transfer portal, the 4th Duck to do so this offseason. He joins wide receiver Chris Hudson, defensive back Brian Addison, and receiver Ashton Cozart. Oregon State officially announces former Beaver quarterback Ryan Gunderson as their new offensive coordinator. USC head coach Lincoln Riley announced quarterback Caleb Williams will not play in the Holiday Bowl against Louisville. Bengals at the Jaguars ends Week 13 in the NFL on Monday Night Football, 5:15 kick on ABC and ESPN. Jacksonville running back Travis Etienne officially questionable with the rib injury, but head coach Doug Peterson has said he will play. The Jags are 10-point favorites. Saints head coach Dennis Allen says quarterback Derek Carr is in concussion protocol and also suffered a rib injury in yesterday's loss to the Lions. Multiple reports have the Eagles signing linebacker Shaquille Leonard to a one-year deal. Over on the hard court, the Trailblazers announced forward Jeremy Grant is in concussion protocol after leaving Saturday's loss to the Jazz in the fourth quarter. And NBA in-season tournament quarterfinals begin tonight. Celtics at the Pacers for a 4:30 tip on TNT. That's followed by the Pelicans at the Kings. For sports scores and stories in 30 minutes, I'm Jeff Rush at the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk. Get in the game at Spirit Mountain Casino. Watch and wager on all the pro and college action. Learn more at spiritmountain.com.
Go deeper on the Trailblazers. The Rose Garden Report with host Sean Hyken. Download the Rose Garden Report on the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts.
You can see the shirt of the day from one Jeff Rust. The shirt du jour. Al Bundy over there.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Four touchdowns in one game.
Polk Eye.
Can I just throw this out there about...
That's not a lot of touchdowns anymore.
Not anymore. No, back then it was.
It probably would be like 6 touchdowns in a game.
Yeah,
now.
7
That's
now.
He'd be like 6 touchdowns, 1 game. It's not a big deal to score 4 in a game.
4 is pretty
anymore.
standard, honestly. Like a standard good game.
Yeah, I mean, that's like a...
Quinn Ewers just threw for 450 and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, you should Polk Eye his ass.
Yeah.
You know, he's Al Bundy now. Go sell some women's shoes, bud.
The number that came out of this for me, out of this weekend,
Yeah.
that is insane.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Saban has played a number 1 team 10 times.
Mm.
Do you know what his record is?
You said 10 times?
Yeah.
9-1.
8-2.
8-2.
Against the number 1
What a
team in the
bum.
country. 8-2 against the number 1 team in the country. That's insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's such an insane number to me.
He's the best coach in college football history. I will say that. Bear Bryant, really good. Different era, different time. Like, Nick Saban has adapted and adjusted better than any other coach, man. He's truly incredible. He is an incredible football coach. And here they are, Bama in it again. Your text coming in on the Vancouver Ford text line. My biggest issue with the selection in college football in general is that it's just bifurcating so much that even if you do everything the, quote, right way, it doesn't matter. The playing field continues to tilt to the big players and those anointed by the networks. It goes against everything that we tell people sports are supposed to be about.
Shout out using bifurcating.
Yeah, Neil, what's up? What's up, Neil? But there is truth, a lot of truth in that. And just look at the 4 teams that are in. It is 2 SEC teams and 2 Big Ten teams. As we are careening down the path of 2 super conferences and then everybody else,
Which is happening.
you have, I know that Washington isn't from the Pac-12. I know that Texas is from the Big 12. Where are they going to be playing next year, folks?
I mean, they were chanting SEC at Brett Yormark at the Big 12 title game.
This is 100% a Big Ten SEC semifinal.
Mm-hmm.
Do I believe that that's what the committee had in their minds? No, I don't. And
Oh, that
look,
makes one of us.
it's silly to sit there and think of that because why would ABC do that when who is the primary partner of the Big Ten?
Who?
Fox.
Mm.
Like if that was the case, then the ACC would have gotten in. Like everybody's like, the TV, ESPN wanted this. It's like, did they? Because Fox is the number 1 partner of the Big Ten and ESPN is the number 1 partner of the ACC. So if that was the case, Florida State would have gotten in, wouldn't they?
But also, ESPN also is, owning part ownership SEC network.
Well, yeah.
They want to look. What's good for the goose is good for the gander here.
But
The Big Ten and
it
the
was
SEC
not a
both-
Big Ten, and the 2 Big Ten teams that got in were the number 1 and 2 teams in the country.
I
right?
don't disagree, but I am not, and you shouldn't discount it.
Yes,
you should not.
I am 100% going to discount that they thought, hey, you know what? We're
On the
partners
network
with
side,
the SEC.
yeah, no, the network side of things.
Florida State
absolutely.
is ACC network is run by ESPN.
Sure, and it's also a network
So-
that you and I both know is probably going to dissolve in the next 3 years.
But it's like I don't think that is what the committee was thinking when they were.
I don't
when they
think
were
it's the
breaking
front of
down
their
these
mind,
teams.
but I absolutely think it was
Yeah.
part of the process.
All right. Other ones that are coming in on the Vancouver Ford text line. College football 4-team playoff is stupid. Only sport where it's not decided on the field until next year. Every other college sport and division have playoffs. So happy for 12 teams. Oh, here on that one.
Yeah.
This is a 4-team play. And imagine if this was only 2-team playoff. Florida State would still be griping because they wouldn't get in over Washington or Michigan.
No. It would be hilarious, though, to shut out the SEC.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I was hoping that the SEC went home with the tail between their legs.
They should have, but
Best versus deserving.
mm-hmm.
Just think of that. Best
It
versus
was a
deserving.
down SEC year.
It was. Like the whole idea that the SEC is the best conference in college football, they were the 3rd best conference in college football this year. Because the Pac-12 and the Big Ten, top to bottom, not just top heavy, top to bottom,
Were better.
The Pac-12 and the Big Ten were better. And that is
Top to bottom,
I'll baby
Pac-12
Billy
is
that.
probably the best conference in the country.
Yeah, the bottom teams were really damn good.
Mm-hmm.
They were really damn good. And there's 7 teams that are in bowl games. And if you look at, there's what, 8 teams in bowl games. 7 teams won 8 or more games, which means in a 9-game conference slate, they took care of their business outside of the conference schedule. And I think that is something that you sit there and you look at where the Pac-12 made the biggest strides. They took care of their business in September, which we've never been talking about. They're probably
it's always falling on their face somewhere early on.
Well, and look, bowl season is never going to be an indicator of this
because of transfers, opt-outs.
Oregon State is not in a good place heading into the Sun Bowl playing Notre Dame.
They don't. Damian Martinez is ineligible. He's suspended.
He is suspended. They have
Aiden
no
Childs
quarterback.
and DJ are out. Ben Gulbranson has already been named the starter.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like
USC's got nobody playing for them.
Yeah. Marshawn Lloyd is out, going to the NFL.
Raleek Brown's in the portal. Caleb Williams ain't playing.
Going to the NFL. Probably half of the defense is out.
Well, they've been out for most of the season anyways.
But it's at least on every level is going to the NFL. So it's
which is crazy that they were so bad defensively.
I mean, hell, you look at them last year; they were bad defensively, and Thule is what, 3rd in the NFL for rookie for sacks for this year. It's like, how do you have a dude that good on your defensive line and you're still just that poor?
Yeah. All right.
But yeah, I mean, you look at it. Hell, look, Bo Nix says he's going to play for Oregon. It's not that I don't believe him. I'm going to not believe him until he's on the field taking snaps against Liberty.
Oh,
Liberty, man.
Yeah,
that's a kick in the teeth.
It's not a great matchup, but at the same time, I think that Bo saying he is going to come back means that you have a lot of other guys that are going to take this game far more seriously, and it's going to be kind of that proving ground that, there's people out there that are saying that Oregon's 2 toughest games they lost. And there's going to be a chip on their shoulder heading into that game where they are massive favorites against a Liberty team that did not play a Power 5 team all year. They played New Mexico State twice. Sam Houston State played them to a 1-score game. Middle Tennessee State played them to a 1-score game. They are undefeated though. But it is not the sexiest of matchups. And I think, like we were talking about, like LSU would be sitting there going, we deserve to be in the 12-team playoff, ranked 13th. I think there's a lot of Oregon fans that would have loved to see a LSU or a Notre Dame or Oklahoma.
Yeah, Oklahoma is the one that SMU at bare minimum.
Yeah, but it was just the way where everybody was slotted in their picking of
and the Fiesta Bowl got last
games.
pick. So,
yep. And that's what
but there wasn't one team in there.
Not one, not a one.
I gotta go take a look and see what other options were available still, because there had to have been somebody in there.
Well, I think the ACC. Apparently what they did was they
stalled,
drug their feet on every bowl game after that. And I think that I think maybe that had a plan, but you have to have a spot somewhere for the highest ranked group of 5. Highest ranked group of 5 was Liberty.
Maybe don't put them there.
Okay. All right. We got a lot of text coming in. We still need to get into, and at the top of the hour, we will break down the Pac-12 championship game. But we have a poll question up at Danny and Dusty right now. Did the college football playoff put the 4 best, not deserving teams in? Well, we'll get to your early feedback on that next. Danny and Dusty on the Fan. rocking and rolling over the course of the day, but we already have a lively discussion going on in the comments to that poll question as well, including Deal, who says they shouldn't pick the teams based on the injury report. You don't play not to get hurt. You play to win the game, with a little Herm Edwards gif. Big shout-outs to Herm Edwards, alive still. He was on ESPN's college football coverage. I haven't seen him in a while. Has anybody seen Herm in a while? You doing all right?
Last time I saw him, we were talking to him.
Yeah.
He's on ESPN occasionally.
Yeah.
Cashing a check.
But I haven't seen him in a while. Speaking of Arizona
He's
State.
literally on the TV right now.
Oh, is he? Oh, my God, there he is.
They came back from commercial. And
on Monday, there he is.
And there you go.
Hells yeah. That's timing, everybody. I saw Arizona State has hired a new offensive coordinator. You see that hire?
No.
Marcus Arroyo, former Oregon offensive coordinator and UNLV head coach. Now Kenny Dillingham's OC. Which
is interesting because they never worked together.
Never overlapped.
Huh.
Arroyo is a really sharp football mind, and I think he and Dillingham together are good. And I just wouldn't want him being my head coach.
That's what to say. Or Arroyo's coordinator.
Yes, he is.
Nothing wrong with being that said coordinator.
No. You know what? You can make a lot of money and
you don't have to deal with the other
less pressure.
Yeah, you don't have to deal with the other nonsense.
Yeah. Another one. We have Alex who has chimed in. Anyone who's voting no is just upset that a 13-0 got left out. Nobody with a straight face can say Alabama isn't one of the 4 best teams unless you're voting no because Georgia didn't get in. You're wrong. 4 best: Michigan, Bama, Georgia, UW. Most deserving: Michigan, UW, Texas, Florida State. Yeah. I think they got it right. I
do and I don't.
Yeah. It doesn't have to make everybody. It doesn't make me happy that they got it right either. You know, isn't that the weird thing?
Yeah,
I can sit there and I can say they got it right, but I'm okay with not being satisfied with the way they got it right. Because if you go 13-0, you deserve.
We talked so much for the last 6 weeks about the process and the process and the process. Florida State's process was not flawed.
True that.
And if it's about process and win and taking care of what's in front of you, what's the point?
Let's talk about one of those teams that got in. The University of Washington. They emphatically crowned themselves Pac-12 champions after beating the Oregon Ducks down in Las Vegas. We'll talk about what went right for the Huskies, what went wrong for the Ducks to start hour number 2. This is Danny and Dusty on The Fan. Was it necessary to have a 4-hour selection show?
No, it never is. It's also not necessary for a 4-hour pregame for the Super Bowl. It's not necessary for nothing is necessary for 4 hours.
No.
A game isn't that long.
No, but they gave us 4 hours of it. If you missed any of that conversation, you could check it out, the Service Patriots podcast at 1080thefan.com or right there in the Odyssey app. Service Patriots is your home comfort solution for all your heating and air conditioning needs. Check out the latest special offers for our listeners at servicepatriots.com/thefan. Washington, they are the number 2 seed in the college football playoff. They get Texas. That'll be a fun matchup. I think that game's going to be really good. But the way that Washington got there was by a convincing win in the Pac-12 championship game. And another 3-point affair played between these two teams as 34-31 is the outcome this time. Kalen DeBoer's Dogs raced out to an early 10-0 lead, and oh my goodness, the start of that game, you could tell Washington, they were playing with something extra. And we talked about this all week long leading up, and it's one of those things that as we're going through it, the first time they've had a full complement of their wide receivers in their wide receiver room. Thule, one of the best run stoppers in all of college football, in the middle of their rush defense. All of those guys played a major factor in that game, ending with a UW win. But the fact of the matter is, it was every single position group for UW. They played their best game of the season, and they outplayed Oregon. The coaching staff out-schemed Oregon. It was a complete win for UW, and Oregon made, as they do every game, made incredible halftime adjustments. But it was too late when you're playing a team as good as UW to spot them 10 points early in the game and only run 6 plays on your first 2 offensive drives. UW's game plan was as perfect as you can draw it. And after that, Oregon played a really good football game, and we were treated to a great matchup, a top 5 matchup that lived up to the billing after those first few drives.
It was a fantastic game.
Yep.
I mean, Washington coming out and chewing up 7.5 minutes in their first drive on a 15-play drive, only getting a field goal. I was like, that's interesting.
That was a win for Oregon.
It was. It was like, Washington's just going to take the points. That was something we wondered going in on Thursday. It was like, is there ever going to be a time where teams are like, unless they have to, are they going to force the issue, or are they just going to take the points, considering what happened last game? Washington takes the points, they go in. That very first Oregon drive was the most jilted, disorganized, frustrated I have seen Bo Nix look ever at Oregon.
Yeah.
Even more than the Georgia game, where even though they lost 49-3, he didn't look bad. Yeah. He had that one bad throw across his body that ended up being the pick. Outside of that, he was never rushed. He was never had happy feet. He wasn't unsure of where to go with the ball. Georgia's defense was just all world, and they got him off the field. Nix did not know where to go or how to get the ball out to somebody in time and space the first 3 plays. I know he hit the ref. Yeah. That play was going to get broken up by the corner.
But look, UW's corners, and they're going to be the unsung heroes of that entire game because they played tight coverage and they were all over.
They knocked balls down, dislodged balls down. They were fantastic.
They were physical. They made plays on the ball. It was a great scheme, but it was also one thing that UW's players did. Execution was at an elite level for UW early in that game and often. And when you talk about, kind of what went wrong, first, the pressure was there, and the pressure was relentless from UW up front. And their front 7 did as good of a job as you possibly can, but as one thing that really kind of stuck out to me was how good their linebackers were playing against Bucky Irving, because in the run game, they were stacked but staggered in their pursuit of Bucky Irving, and how many times we've seen him. If you're going to have either an outside linebacker or a corner come up and set the edge, Bucky setting them up, putting a foot in the ground, and finding that cutback lane.
Yep.
That pursuit was so relentless, and it was discipline. He had nowhere to go. And if the first backer missed, the second backer was right there.
Yeah.
All game long.
There's no backside plays to be made. And from my perspective, Bucky did not look right.
I mean, he's been dinged for a while, but it was the fact that lane just wasn't there. And that's why they went to Jordan James in the second half. Like, you could look at it, he was downhill, and he was way more effective. Just see the hole and hit it, because you had to do that against the pursuit of UW. But in the passing game, they did such a good job of, whether it was their tight ends or the running backs, releasing out into the flats. And we've talked about this, how Will Stein's offense always has an answer, right? At every single level. Well, and those guys were vacating, like the very first play of the game, where you try to get to Troy Franklin across the middle because those backers were gone. Okay. And you're replacing, either you replace a blitzer or you replace a vacating backer who's going with the back out. The corners are playing so tight and playing so well,
step for step,
that answer wasn't there for the offense. And on the first play, it wasn't there. And then on third down, when you saw Troy try to run that slant, they did there was a hold on there, but who cares? It's a conference championship game. I appreciate the fact that the officials let the players play.
They stayed out of this game almost entirely.
And were there penalties that they missed? Yeah, sure, but it was for both sides.
Yeah.
It wasn't just one-sided, right? There were plenty of opportunities for Oregon to make it up, and we saw that they did in the second half. They took a lead in the game, right? But when you spot a team that many points early, and when you go 3 and out, and you have a 7.5-minute death march for a field goal, and then you go on a 6-play, just quick strike drive after a long punt return, like that punt return after the first 3 and out, like we go back to that. That was a huge play in that game.
That was an that was like, oh, they might have a little bit of juice coming out here.
Because that Ross James, I haven't seen that out of him. He outkicked his coverage, though. And when you have it as explosive as a returner as Jeremy Bernard is, man, he made Oregon pay. One guy got out of his lane, and when he gets that thing to the 50-yard line, that is a huge play in that game. And then the defense feeds off it, and it's another 3 and out for Oregon. And then you saw, okay, this is what Oregon does. The settle, reset, and adjust. And I thought that they had to grind out every single drive to get points out of it. And it was like, and this is like such a helpless feeling when you are a play caller or when you are an offense and you're trying to operate, in that the methodical nature of Oregon's offense all season long has been like, we will control tempo, we will control pace, and we will make you pay. When Oregon was successful, it was on the, okay, we're relying on big plays right now.
Yeah.
We're relying on big play, and you don't want to have an offense that relies on big plays. And that's a ton of credit to Washington, forcing Oregon to be uncomfortable. But I thought that Oregon's offense did adapt very well when they got Jordan James in. It was more downhill running.
Well, particularly before the half. That drive, Lanning calling the timeout, making sure they had enough time to work with. Great. Again, Lanning's 1-4 now against Oregon State and Washington, their rivalry matchups, which we can talk about later. But the criticism of game management stuff, I don't think that really popped up in this game.
Nope.
And this is where I think you need to give Lanning credit, because he did call that timeout that gets them that opportunity, and they go down, they just boom, 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 boom. And they get that score that allows this to be a game. They don't get that score, this isn't a game.
No.
This isn't a game.
That is where Bo Nix looked comfortable.
Yep.
It's where you got Troy Franklin loose a little bit on that drive. And look, the middle four is where Oregon prides themselves on, right? 4 minutes before middle 8, 4 minutes before half, 4 minutes coming out of half.
And they're fantastic.
And they put their defense on the field at the beginning of the game, knowing that, hey, middle 8 is where we want to win. They get that touchdown at the end of the half. And then what I thought was really interesting was, and this is where Dan Lanning and Oregon did play true to themselves. They come out in the second half, and then on the opening drive, they convert 2 fourth downs. There was so much football to be played. And after what happened up in Seattle, he wasn't gun shy, didn't change what their identity is. They went out and they scored to make it 20-17. And I thought that those moments, if they were to punt on that first fourth down when you're near midfield and it's short and you're like, this isn't who we are, then you're playing, conservatively, and you're worried about what's going to happen next. I thought that was a big boost to keep that game competitive throughout, and not only just bringing that game closer, but you saw kind of a little bit of a spark from Oregon, and then they end up taking a lead They scored 21 unanswered points in that game.
And a big part of that was something, again, we talked about on Thursday, which was they have done a great job of, number one, keeping Bo Nix clean all year, but not running designed plays so he's not taking hits.
Yep.
They ran, I believe, 4 designed runs for, I want to say, about 30 yards before he breaks that, 45, 50-yarder. But each one of those plays, I believe 2 of them one of them was a 4th down, the other one was a 2nd down that ended to a 3rd and short, or ended up being a 4th and short. But the threat of Bo as a runner was a thing for the first time all season.
In that throw to Terrence Ferguson for the touchdown on 4th and 2, boy, you saw it.
Yeah,
like that's the, if they win that game, like those are the that's the Heisman drive,
that's the
right?
Play. Yeah,
but Oregon's defense also settled in. They get a pick, and then Oregon's interception.
Right.
What did they say on the television broadcast about that play? Because the defender came from out of bounds, because they did not show a replay as it was being reviewed on the Jumbotron. And we were all just looking around like, what is going on here? Because he was out of bounds. I saw him go out of bounds.
Said
and then he came back in.
The on-camera referee said, in college football, the defender can go out of bounds. You do not need to reestablish before being able to touch the ball. It is only the offensive player.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because you could understand why he threw the ball to Trayshawn Holt, because he thought
he thought out of bounds. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or he thought
2 guys gone.
Yeah.
And then he comes from from the UW sideline, comes out of nowhere like it's just some dude standing on the sideline going to pick it up.
Yoink.
This is a hell of a play.
Yeah.
It was an incredible play by UW, but that was a big momentum swing right there, to where if they don't get that one back and Oregon goes down and scores, you sit there and we're going, oh, whoa, hey, what are we doing here? As it was, Oregon's defense still bowed their back. They hold UW on that drive, and it was kind of even Stevens. You're playing at a stalemate.
The momentum went one way, and then it went hard back the other way, and then it kind of slowed down, and it was like, that's where the game kind of got a little murky. But
and that is where I give UW the most credit.
Was pulling it out of that. Yeah.
They were drug into deep waters again. It was not unfamiliar to them. They knew exactly how to handle the situation. They never got down. You could hear a pin drop at times when Oregon took the lead, and UW fans going like, this isn't supposed to be happening right now.
Ruh-roh.
Not from that sideline, though. Those guys, there is a resolve about UW that you just, like, they do not feel they're going to lose.
And it's particularly when you have, and we can talk about this at the break, when you have all 3 of those or all 4 of those wide receivers.
Yep. I tried to warn people all last week.
Look, I took Washington to cover. There's no way that was a 9-point game.
Yeah.
I just, no. But, I mean, look, Odunze is absolutely a dude.
Yeah.
On all levels, but you can't single cover all of those guys.
Yeah.
You just can't do it. And when you allowed Penix, and Penix was able, Oregon's pass rush was not able to be disruptive. And Penix was able to let routes develop. And you were down there. He had throws that were just otherworldly.
And I want to talk about Michael Penix Jr. because he is so damn good. And he was the best player on the field on Friday night. This is Danny Dusty on The Fan. he did it with his arm a couple times, took off with his legs, took a couple of shots, and Bo Nix afterwards in the tunnel went up to him and was talking to him and kind of like, and UW fans were like, oh, classless. He kind of gently like grabbed him and was like, you good? And Mike Penix said, my ribs are fine. I don't know why people are saying I'm hurt. He was playing like a roller coaster the back half of the season.
Not even a roller coaster. He was awful except for one game in his last 5.
Was that dude on Friday night. He looked fine. He made some of the most NFL-ready throws that you could possibly make.
Pinpoint throwing guys open.
Throwing into coverage and putting it where only your guy can get it.
Hell, honestly, the most surprising thing about the game wasn't how good he was. It was the throw that he had to Polk early in the game that he overthrew. And Polk, Oregon had broken coverage. I don't know what happened. He was butt naked.
Yep.
Penix puts touch on that. It's another 6 right out of the gate. And it was like, oh, he missed that throw. Maybe there's something bothering him. No, it wasn't. Because he just dotted dudes the entire game.
Jalen McMillan, Rome Odunze, those are NFL wide receivers. They played like it on Friday night. And Michael Penix Jr., it looked like a guy who he was ready just to shut everybody up. The whole team played like this.
Yes.
But Penix especially was the throws that he made, the degree of difficulty in his decision-making was top-notch. It truly was. It was top-notch. And, you know, the worst throw of the night was picked off by Kyrie Jackson, the other Alabama transfer who wears number 5. Kyrie Jackson. And that would have been a pick 6 if Kyrie keeps his feet.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what happened there, but
Turf
again,
monster.
Here's another thing that happened. And this, like, with how good Penix and McMillan and Odunze and Polk and having Jeremy Bernard and having Devin Culp and having Giles Jackson, having the full complement of weapons and Dylan Johnson out of the backfield and running like 6 inches off the ground and always churning forward, it didn't matter to me who was on the field, but when you are without Jaleel Florence, when Kyrie Jackson is missing for series, and you have to test that depth, wrong team to have that happen against. In Washington, did what great teams do. They make you pay in where you are short. And Oregon was short in the secondary, and they made them pay for it. And that's that's all credit to Washington. It's not a knock on Oregon.
No, you can't, and we talked about this off air a bunch. You can't single cover this team.
No.
Because it does not matter how good your secondary is. They have 2 NFL wide receivers, and hell, they might have 3. With a guy who's the back end and Polk, who you're like, I could see him on an NFL roster. Yep. He's got the ball skills for it. But I mean, Odunze and McMillan are absolute monsters. Odunze is on everyone's board the number 2 wide receiver in this draft.
He should be, man.
Behind Marvin Harrison Jr.,
really
who is
good.
unbelievable. And you just cannot. I would call this one of the most disrespectful but honest plays I have seen in Washington run when they were in the red zone, when they had Odunze on the wide side of the field. They ran that long 20-yard across the field fade. But that just shows you just how much they believe in Penix and Odunze.
Yeah, I don't think that's disrespectful at all. You've got 2 of the best players on the field. You use them.
Yeah, you don't usually see that.
And you go get it.
You don't usually see the wide side fade, though. I mean, it just shows you just how much they trust, number 1, Penix's arm, but number 2, Odunze to win that back shoulder fade ball. And it's just, that's how good they are. And that doesn't take away anything from Oregon, but you need to be able to roll help somewhere. And with these guys, you just can't. And that has been the MO for Washington basically all season, is they just haven't had that complement of guys where you could roll help.
Well, and when Ryan Grubb and Kalen DeBoer are in their bag like they were, Oregon did adjust, and they went 3 over 2 when they would go wide, and they'd have to go single coverage on the backside with either Odunze or McMillan. But they had 2 out. They went 3 over 2 and brought the safety over for help. And Dylan Johnson made him pay. You lighten that box and watch out, because that is the threat that you can't account for when you have 4 great receivers on the field.
Except for that one time when Dylan Johnson decided to not turn the ball upfield.
Yeah, well, they strung it out, man.
I'm telling you, on TV and if you across social media when that play happened, he had a lane that he could get up, and he just didn't do it. And that felt like that might be a turning point for Oregon when he
Look,
went down there.
There are so many plays like that. I find it interesting when social media wants to start jumping on what cutback lane or where a guy didn't put his foot in the ground and which ones they don't, because watch a game and they're all over the place. There was 2 with Bucky that, I mean, but when you are playing and it's moving as fast in that game, it is the fastest I have seen since the Oregon-Georgia game to start last year. Just the speed of play on both sides of the field. They were moving, man. Like, I mean, and when guys are moving that fast and you see, purple blurs or white blurs, you good luck saying, hey, you should have found that cutback lane.
Stick it in there.
No, man. No.
Did you hear anybody?
Crazy.
I know we got to get to worst day, but did you hear anybody complaining about the turf?
It was bad.
Okay.
I walked on it before.
Was it just chock full of rubber?
Seams. No, it wasn't the rubber. There were seams everywhere.
Because the turf monster reached up and grabbed a couple of guys.
There were holes, like legitimate holes and mounds all over the place.
Good God.
Yeah. It was the damnedest thing. Like, I went down before the game and I was walking and I was like, this is wild. I'm surprised it didn't happen more. I mean, one of them happened. Johnson had one where he was out, and it was like
literally just slid out from underneath him.
Boop, boom.
Yeah,
and it wasn't like too much rubber or pellets. It was just like weird, uneven spots throughout the course of it. I don't know why. I don't know why, but it was something to behold for a turf field that is a permanent turf field too. Yep,
that part.
Just like that.
Speaking of weird, uneven things that are awful to behold, the NFL officials had themselves a weekend. We'll get to that on Wednesday. But first, here's a Sports Center update with the Big Kahuna.
You mind if I have some of your tasty beverage to wash this down?
Now, from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
This update brought to you by Big's Chicken. Try their smoked and fried wings tossed with a perfect dry rub and served with a killer trio of sauces online at bigschicken.com. First on The Fan, we now know the bowl opponents for Oregon and Oregon State. The number 8 Ducks will face number 23 Liberty in the Fiesta Bowl on New Year's Day, and the number 19 Beavers get number 16 Notre Dame in the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl on December 29th. Oregon head coach Dan Lanning says Bo Nix will play in the bowl game. As for the Beavers, quarterback Aiden Childs has announced he's headed to the transfer portal. He is expected to follow Jonathan Smith to Michigan State. Oregon safety Damon David also reportedly entering the transfer portal, the 4th Duck to do so this offseason. He joins receiver Chris Hudson, defensive back Brian Addison, and receiver Ashton Cozart. Oregon State officially announcing former Beaver quarterback Ryan Gunderson as their new offensive coordinator. And USC head coach Lincoln Riley announced quarterback Caleb Williams will not play in the Holiday Bowl against Louisville. In the NFL, Bengals at the Jaguars ends Week 13 on Monday Night Football, 5:15 kick on ABC and ESPN. Jacksonville running back Travis Etienne officially questionable with a rib injury, but head coach Doug Peterson has said he will play. The Jags are 10-point favorites. Saints head coach Dennis Allen says quarterback Derek Carr is in concussion protocol and also suffered a rib injury in yesterday's loss to the Lions. Multiple reports have the Eagles signing linebacker Shaquille Leonard to a 1-year deal. On the hard court, Trailblazers announced forward Jeremy Grant in concussion protocol after leaving Saturday's loss to the Jazz in the 4th quarter. And NBA in-season tournament quarterfinal play begins tonight. Celtics at the Pacers for a 4:30 tip on TNT. That's followed by the Pelicans at the Kings. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Jeff Rust at the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk. Get in the game at Spirit Mountain Casino. Watch and wager on all the pro and college action. Learn more at spiritmountain.com.
This is your home for year-round NFL coverage. The Odyssey app and 1080 The Fan.
Sponsored by
It's time for today's worst day on the web. With Danny and Dusty on Odyssey and 1080 The Fan.
Well, that sucks.
In a world where you don't want to have officials be known, the NFL made the officials known all bleeping day.
Yeah, it was a weird weekend in the NFL. It was like Tom Brady got criticized for calling the league like wildly average and mediocre, not really taking into account how bad the AFC East was when he played.
Yeah, Alex Smith let him know.
Yeah. But this past weekend, like the football wasn't that great. We only had like a couple of games.
Oh, you had baseball scores.
The stinkers were aplenty. Like, I mean, you just go back to Thursday night where it was no defense being played. Cowboys, you're dead to me. But how can you be that bad defensively in a 41-35 game? And then you fast forward to Sunday, we have a 6-0 Patriots-Chargers game where I told you guys a safety and a field goal was enough for me because New England wasn't scoring. They didn't. They got shut out. Their offense is god-awful.
Literal baseball score.
Yeah. The Jets and Falcons had one offensive touchdown, and it wasn't by the Jets who scored 8 points in the game. They scored 8 points with 2 field goals and a safety.
Did you see that hit by Quinnen Williams?
Yes.
Good Lord.
Really good at foosball.
Also, I believe the Patriots have given up 10 points or less in their last 3 games and lost all of them.
Yeah, thank you for that reminder.
Is their defense good, or the teams they played sucked that much?
Yes. And they do too.
Yeah.
The Browns and Rams was a thing. Like, that game was ugly. It was like the most interesting part of that game was that 2 players got their face masks stuck together, which I love every time.
It wasn't
I see
actually
that.
the face mask, though. It was the ear hole.
Whatever.
Face masks we're used to seeing. We're not used to ear hole.
Yeah. Wait. A face mask had to be a part of that.
Well,
though.
you know, it was a face mask and an ear hole.
Yeah. But then you
I
have
just got 2 ear holes stuck together.
whatever that was that they called a football game in Houston between the Texans and the Broncos.
Well, that's what happens when Russell Wilson plays a backup quarterback.
Russell Wilson was terrible in that game.
Yeesh.
You had
It's been terrible.
and that's just not true. And then you had a absolute blowout in what was supposed to be the best game of the year or the weekend.
I mean, honestly,
49ers
probably
Eagles.
the best game of the year, potentially.
And then you had the Chiefs and Packers on Sunday Night Football where Jordan Love plays incredible, and all we're talking about is officials in both of those games.
Yes. And
Both of those games.
For those that may not have watched the Chiefs and Packers last night, down the stretch, final drive for the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes strings out a play, takes off, runs for what appears to be about 10 yards, doesn't quite fight for an extra yard, but doesn't also slide or truly give himself up and gets popped in bounds.
Yeah, right at the stick. And this is what I have. This is the issue that I have is they give like a unnecessary roughness penalty because
For playing football.
it's a quarterback. And Patrick Mahomes was like slowing down to try to avoid contact. But here's my issue. He's in bounds and he is at the first down marker.
Yes.
He is trying to get an extra yard.
Mhm.
And in that situation, there is no way an official can throw a flag on that
No.
because I don't care if he's slowing down. He was trying to get another yard. He was trying to get it
If you want to go down, go down.
or go out of bounds.
Yeah.
And he didn't. He didn't do either of those things.
A flag was thrown for playing football. I don't care about protecting quarterbacks. Even live, I'm sitting there going, how the hell do you throw it? And then they show the replay, and it's like, how the hell do you throw that flag?
And on the one thing that I do not like in officiating is that makeup calls should not exist, but they do.
They do, and they absolutely unequivocally do, because we had the second most egregious pass interference call of my lifetime.
Marquez Valdez-Scantling got mugged.
The only thing missing from the crime scene was a prison shank.
And it was like so bad that like there's nothing you can do.
No, there's not a person on this planet, the most egregious cheesehead on the planet, still looking at that going,
Yeah. And they got away with one.
He mauled him.
They got away with one, and the officials didn't call it because they knew what set that play up.
Was giving 15 yards the play before.
And that is...
Oh, 2 plays before, because they had the fake fumble in between.
That is egregious officiating.
Yes.
And then it was like that isn't even it, because in the blowout of the 49ers and the Eagles, I don't know how this happens. Like Dre Greenlaw gets a unnecessary roughness
And an ejection.
for suplexing. Well, he didn't get it for that.
Well, yes.
He got the unnecessary roughness for suplexing a player on the sideline, and it just happened to be the Eagles sideline.
Mm-hmm.
Then Philly's new hero, Big Dom DeSandro.
Big Dom, who, if you look up his bio and his title, definitely looks like it is made up by the mob.
And apparently, like, he's known for like setting up all the food recommendations for the staff when they go to different cities, and he looks just like it. Like he's Big Dom DeSandro. Looks like a big Italian. He's wearing a gold chain. He's got
Eagles
an Italian
hat, flag on his jacket. Hat.
Yeah, it has on his hat an Italian flag on it. Like he is full on Philly Italian. And he gets in the face of Dre Greenlaw. For some reason, he was wearing an arm sleeve too, which I don't know. Is he just keeping his punching arm warm?
It's either that or it's got all the phone numbers for all of the players in case they get picked up at night.
Jeez. But he gets in the face of Greenlaw and actually shoves Dre Greenlaw. And in response, Greenlaw does the, like, I'm going to get my hand as close to your face.
He booped him.
It wasn't a punch.
No, he booped him.
And he was, like, next to his face, and he, at the end, like, put his finger out like he's pointing to somebody next to him, but, like, rubbing the face of Big Dom.
He booped his nose.
And not only did he get the penalty for the unnecessary roughness, but he gets ejected for making contact with DeSandro. That is a massive, like, that's a big momentum changer right there. But it turns out the Eagles sucked yesterday, not as a team. Relax, Eagles fans. But what I don't get is, so they tack on the 15 for the unnecessary roughness. Dre Greenlaw gets ejected. Why were the Eagles not penalized at all for a support staffer pushing an opposing player?
Do you think it was a push as opposed to a separation?
No, it was not a separation.
Okay.
It was not, because there were people between him and he reached over and he pushed him. Like, that is what but it warranted an ejection for Big Dom.
Yeah, you could have,
but not a penalty.
You could have thrown a flag for a sideline infraction for sure.
Well, they should have.
Yeah,
like that's what the NFL should have done.
Yeah,
he is a hero still because he is.
He's so Philly.
Mr. Philly.
Yeah.
He needs to be in an episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
He's 100% getting 3 sandwiches named after him.
And today he was actually, they just signed Shaq Lawson as a free agent, and he was escorting Lawson through the airport in Philly back to the Eagles facility.
To raucous applause.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. But then so there we have 2 games that have massive reffing faux pas, and then a game that nobody should have been watching. But if you were, the Jets-Falcons game, it was just taken over by the officials. There were so many penalties in that game. If the offense was unwatchable, the officiating made it even more unwatchable, because the Jets had 11 penalties for 71 yards. The Falcons had 6 penalties for 55 yards. But at one stretch in the game, there was an 8-play stretch where 6 penalties were called in an 8-play stretch. There can be a penalty called on every
play. Every single play.
You don't do it.
Advantage, disadvantage.
Ref show.
Yes.
It turned into the ref show. And, like, I think that this wouldn't be that big of a deal, but everybody's talking about it now because of the fact that it was a clunker of a weekend in the NFL. Yes. And, like, what Brady was saying about the mediocrity of the league, it kind of showed this past weekend. It really showed
when
this past weekend.
When you take America's team out of the slate, this is what happens.
Oh, God. Cowboys played on Thursday, and I hate saying that they are America's team.
Are they? Because winners cover.
Yeah, well, let's not talk about the Raiders then.
They cover.
Let's not talk about the Raiders then.
You know what we should talk about?
Josh McDaniels.
He's terrible.
He was really terrible.
That's why he's no longer employed.
Yeah, I learned my lesson picking 2 teams this week that I normally always stay away from. It's Cowboys and Broncos.
There you go.
They both bit me in the butt.
Hey, but how about this? Good news. I want to end the worst day in the world with a little bright spot. 9-3 Detroit Lions. The first time they're 9-3 since 1962.
62.
Biting kneecaps, baby.
My goodness.
It's been a long slog.
They covered.
You know what? 5-point win.
My Lions. All right, coming up. Well, it is bowl season, and ladies and gentlemen, Eli Drinkowitz, protect this man at all costs. Danny and Dusty, today, the Fan. with Chris Fowler of ESPN during the bowl selection process, and towards the end of his conversation, he says he's getting a phone call and needs to step away because, he's getting some answers.
Hey guys, I got a quick phone call. Connor Stallion's beeping in right here. I'm trying to get a few signals here, so I gotta go. But as soon as we get done, look forward to competing against Ryan Day, and we'll go from there.
Maybe you'll get some help in that regard too. Drake, always a pleasure, man. Thanks a lot for being with us.
M-I-Z.
M-I-Z.
That's fantastic.
I love that Reese Davis was just like, the look on his face when he said that was like, oh my goodness. And Eli Drinkwitz, his story is pretty cool. Like, he went from Appalachian State and he goes to Missouri, takes over, a program that was in it in a bad way.
Yeah.
And now they're in a New Year's Six bowl.
They're on the upswing.
I think a lot of, Oregon fans would rather play like Missouri or, Ohio State.
I think
but drawing Ohio State is good. It's a great bowl game for them.
It is. A quick aside on the Liberty selection: is there a team in the top 25? Is there any other team you, as Oregon, you would rather play less than Liberty?
They're the same as SMU or like Kansas State. Those two. Are just not great.
I think I'd rather play Kansas State or SMU.
We've already seen a Fiesta Bowl with Oregon and Kansas State, and I'll never forget. I have a good buddy who was watching that game, and as the ball was getting ready to be kicked off, he said, "Kansas State has 6 white guys on their kickoff team. This is not going to go well." And DeAnthony Thomas returned it for a touchdown.
Whee!
We've seen that one play out, and SMU, I think it's the same. It's not even the same because Liberty is undefeated. They're well coached, but they're kind of the same thing because their 2 losses are to both Power 5 teams that they played. They got beat by TCU 34-17. The same TCU team that got run by Colorado to start the year, remember? Like that TCU team. So that's why I'm sitting there and I'm like, they got back on the right track, but we know what they are too.
The interesting thing about this to me is this: 7 Ohio State, 8 Oregon, 9 Missouri, 10 Penn State, 11 Ole Miss, 12 Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Every other team in that group but Oregon has a good bowl game.
They do. And even like Notre Dame at 16, they're playing Oregon State in the Sun Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. That's a great matchup. Like, B-fans should be excited.
Yeah.
Well, until everybody left.
Yeah.
That would have been a great matchup, but now you don't have your top 2 quarterbacks. You're sitting there and you're looking at it
Or
like,
your running back.
We don't want to play in this. Or your best wide receiver.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot not going for Oregon State.
Definitely not going right. And with that, that's where we'll start hour number 3 here on Danny and Dusty. The transfer portal is alive and well for everyone, unfortunately. We'll get to that, Danny and Dusty, today, the fan. are deciding what to do with their future, whether they're going to the NFL, sitting out bowl games, or transferring in. The transfer portal is loaded already.
Yeah, it is. Look, this is a wild round of college football transfer portal because, look, this is the first year that it's going to be flooded all at once because they have now the windows that you can be that are open and closed. And so today's been a big day, and there's going to be more action as this thing goes on because this is only day one, and there's still a lot of like exit interviews that are happening between players and their head coaches, and you're still kind of finding your footing. The next wave is going to come after spring ball happens. And after signing day in mid-December, like you got to think of it in these terms. There's a lot of guys right now that are, if you're entering the portal, one of two things is happening. One, you got to campus and you're on campus and you're like, this ain't what I signed up for. It's not what I envisioned. Or you have a head coach leave. You have got, you've fallen out of good graces. Like, I mean, just look at Oregon's defections right now in the portal. Chris Hudson played a big role last year.
Yep.
Not playing. Brian Addison thought he was going to be playing a big role. And after the UW game, we didn't see him again. He stepped away from the team. He's in the portal. Ashton Cozart, a wide receiver who we haven't really seen much of, in the portal, right? It's these types of guys where you thought you were going to have a role. It didn't come to fruition. You're out. It's going to be a reset. It's going to be okay. The other one, though, is you're a quarterback, and you are going to be a hired gun no matter where you go because that is going to be the future of quarterbacks on rosters that are competitive but not good enough to win at the highest levels. And these guys want to win at the highest levels, whether you are Dylan Gabriel from Oklahoma.
A legitimate Heisman candidate.
You got Cam Ward at Washington State.
Who, I mean, put up numbers to be a Heisman candidate if he was on the right team.
Mississippi State's Will Rogers, who apparently is going to UW. Kyle McCord, which your fan base turned on you, and you're still pretty damn good quarterback.
Sure.
But, I mean, look, in any of these guys that leave, look at it in these terms. Bo Nix was given up on by Auburn.
Yep, but he was also a five-star quarterback. The same thing with Kyle McCord, five-star quarterback. DJ Uyunglele is a five-star quarterback.
Both he and Aiden Childs enter the transfer portal.
Yeah, Oregon State's Aiden Childs is a four-star, and it does sound like he may perhaps be following Jonathan Smith to Michigan State.
That seems to be what everybody is kind of on the radar of. And look, another coach is left, and he's following him to Michigan State. I mentioned this at the time, and there was pushback from Oregon State fans who were like, you don't know what you're talking about, or, that's not right. They're all mad at Jonathan Smith.
They might have been.
Know how it goes. Coach leaves you, you feel burnt, you get angry, you are very mad, you rally together, and then as time goes on, you sit there and you're looking at each other going, this isn't the same. It's not going to be the same. And we all got to start looking out for our own selves and our own best interests because we know now that that's what our coaches are doing too. Because even those guys that told you at the beginning, like, hey, we're going to rally together, it's us against the world, even some of those guys are leaving now too. And the person that brought you there and the person that you believed in to lead your program is no longer there. That's real, and that's hard to get over. That is very hard to get over. And so your feelings do soften and you're not as angry anymore. And you're just saying, all right, you talk to more people. You talk to, your family members, your old high school teammates and coaches and people that you trust. And they all say, what are you going to do? Like, are you really going to stick with this? These are all real conversations. And we're starting to see names are trickling out. Now, not everybody's going to leave Oregon State. Some of them really do love it. And
David Martinez among them.
Yeah. But a lot of the guys, they're just looking out for themselves, and especially when you find out the Mountain West hybrid schedule is what you're rolling with moving forward, that's not going to keep some guys around.
You signed up for a Pac-12 schedule.
And that sucks. But the transfer portal is very full. And quarterbacks and wide receivers.
Wide receivers, there's a third window in there as far as, your coach leaving or the program changes or whatever it is. The third one is your quarterback is leaving and you don't know kind of what the situation's going to be. You're seeing that at Washington State. You're seeing that at Ohio State. You're seeing that basically anywhere a good to great quarterback is leaving, the wide receivers are also leaving because they're looking around going, I need to go land somewhere because if you're trying to get to the next level, you can't go play for a team that's trying to break in a new quarterback again and again and again.
Well, or if you're like the Vandy receiver who I guess is going to Georgia. It's in Landon Humphreys.
Yes.
The Vanderbilt receiver. He's going to just go and say, look, dude, I gave
I'm
it
gonna
all.
put myself on the radar.
I did everything for you, Vandy. I'm going to go and be the next Ladd McConkey at Georgia. And he's better. He's really stinking good. But you got guys like Juice Wells from South Carolina where it's like,
he's not going to have any shortage of suitors.
no, he's really good. The Burks kid from Purdue is really good. And he's entering the portal too. The Ohio State one is really interesting with McCord leaving because
15 transfers leaving Ohio State now, including McCord.
God, that feels so weird.
That's a big number.
I know that Fleming, who's supposed to be like one of those next guy up type guys, just not getting enough touches because look, he can be a number one receiver almost anywhere else except for Ohio State, probably UW, every other place in the country. He's going to be a 1 or 2 no matter where he's at. Just not finding that room there at Ohio State, which is interesting that he's going to leave because of the fact that
Marvin's leaving.
Yeah,
Buka's
leaving. Like there's gonna open up. Room. There's gonna open up, buddy. So there must be something there.
Yeah.
And then I think we're gonna start to see more and more guys. Even though I think the hire at Texas A&M is good. The idea though that they went to play for Jimbo still. A lot of guys are saying that NIL money that everybody was talking about, it's not really there for most of them. You're starting to see more and more guys trickle out of Texas A&M, including Cottrell, the really good wide receiver for them. One of the best pass rushers that's going to be in the portal from A&M, Walter Nolan. He's going to be a guy a hot name, and I would suspect that whether it is a Juice Wells, the receiver from South Carolina, anybody from Texas A&M, Oregon is going to be in play for all of those guys.
Sure.
I mean, all of those guys he's going to be in play for, or they are going to be in play for, because that's one place in South Carolina they dipped in before.
Yep. Both Oregon and USC have both hit South Carolina transfers.
And going into the SEC, we saw with Alabama, we saw with South Carolina, Auburn. And then remember, the chief of staff for Oregon football is Marshall Malchow, who was part of the recruiting. He was the director of recruiting for A&M when they signed the number 1 class in the country the year before Lanning was hired. Now he is at Oregon. Okay, I mean they have connections within the SEC.
Draw the lines, and also Lanning
SEC guys and the whole staff. They've been in on recruiting all of those guys before. So you just sit there and you go, hey,
most recently, obviously, Jordan Birch coming over.
Look what we did with Jordan Birch and Kyrie Jackson and Trayshawn Holden.
Just because you're from the South doesn't mean you can't be successful in, to be blunt, in Lily White Eugene.
Yeah. I think that UW solidifying their quarterback spot with Will Rogers, the Mississippi State guy, all signs point to him just being a UW guy. Crystal Ball on 24/7 is 100% Will Rogers to UW. So,
it's kind of like
that's a good fit too.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Riley Leonard to Notre Dame thing. Everybody seems to assume those deals are done.
But there's great quarterbacks that are out there. Cam Ward, Dylan Gabriel, Dante Moore, both the Oregon State quarterbacks. They're going to be hot in demand too.
Dylan Gabriel to me is like, I understand the hired gun world right now. How can Oklahoma be? You know what? We have this freshman behind you. He's pretty good. We think he's pretty good. When Dylan Gabriel has been a Heisman candidate.
I think in that regard, you go down the line of, all right, or changing offensive coordinators. What is it going to look like in system-wise? Do I just want to get a reset and a restart? They got a guy they believe in. I mean, they're not going to bench him. Dylan Gabriel is that dude. If he is that guy, they're not going to bench him for somebody else. But I just worry about, like, if you go down the road of, we're just going 1 year at a time now.
That's kind of what I mean. Like,
you can't do that for anybody else going to get a Dylan Gabriel.
No,
it's a big question.
That's the thing. It's like, I don't understand how if you're Oklahoma here, you're just going to be like, nah.
Well, because you got the future and you don't want that guy to leave because you got one more year of Dylan Gabriel. If you think that if your freshman's going to be that guy, you roll with him.
He better have shown something in practice.
Well, and you don't make that move if he hasn't.
But that's what I mean. Like,
that's like everybody in the world, like Darren Thomas when he left for the NFL draft. He's like, what? Does he think he's going to get drafted? No, he saw Marcus Mariota in practice and was like, I ain't competing with that guy.
I'm good.
Yeah, I will lose my job to that guy. And so that does happen because everybody was talking about this Hawaiian kid who's running the scout team is incredible.
Maybe you should get him some reps.
Yeah. Well, he did.
Turns out.
Won a Heisman.
it's still the whole idea of like getting away from a Heisman candidate. This isn't like a run-of-the-mill quarterback or a stopgap or like a good quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
This is a legitimate, obscenely good Heisman quarterback whose only drawback has been injury.
And the fact he has 1 year. He has 1 year left. That I would be worried
One in
about
the
that.
hand or two in the bush. That's,
I mean, you got to develop a quarterback at some point, though, and you got to have a homegrown one. And that's
he was.
No. I'm talking about whoever takes Dylan Gabriel.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I mean, that's it. You get one year left, and look, if you don't play the youngster, he's gone.
It's a weird spot to kind of end up in the portal. There was something that I wondered, and you and I have talked about throughout this season, for Dan Lanning in his second year. He is now 1-4 against the rivals in Oregon State and Washington, including 2 losses to Washington this year. Where does Dan Lanning currently sit now among Oregon faithful, and kind of where he is at going forward? We'll get to that and more coming here on Danny and Dusty, Danny the Fan. You lost. It was quite literally like, and again, this wasn't right after. I didn't do the poll until the poll started at 9:30 at night.
So you waited like a half hour after the game.
Oh, come on. That's like an hour and a half, 2 hours. Come on.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
The game started at 5, Danny.
Yeah.
What world are you living in?
Yeah,
It was a 3.5 hour football game.
It was over at 8.
I know, it's a 3.5 hour game.
Come on. But in all fairness, I actually got answers that I found a little bit surprising. The 4 options were still too early, not great, Bob, thinking about a change, and new coach now. Still too early basically got 50% of the vote. And still too early is like, you're not worried about anything. Everything's fine.
No.
It's still too early to make any sort of, rash or judgment or anything along those lines. But that was 50%. 50% of the vote otherwise was divided between not great, Bob, thinking about a change, and new coach now. With 11% of that going to new coach now.
Yeah, and that is people that are dumb.
Mm-hmm.
But having this conversation, there's nothing wrong with having this conversation because winning your rivalry games are important.
It matters.
It's important to Dan Lanning. It's important to any coach.
Yes.
It's important to any fan base.
You have incentives in your contract built off of it.
Winning against your rival is something that does matter. And the fact that he's now 0-3 in 2 years against UW, yeah, that does sting. But at the same time, you also have to take into consideration, these are the first 2 years that he has ever been a head coach.
Mm-hmm.
And Georgia fans were upset with Kirby Smart at the beginning of his tenure because guess what?
Alabama.
He still can't beat Nick Saban. I think he's 1-4 against Nick Saban.
He got
now.
the one. That matters.
He's got one. Yeah, right. But you get that one, and like those things hurt and those things matter. It is hard, and you look at the ways that they have lost, right? Year one, they lose to UW. They go for it. They the missed 4th downs. But Bo Nix, in his inability to make a cut on a sprained ankle, he picks up that 1st down. We're not having that conversation, right? He goes for it on 4th downs against Oregon State, this year against UW.
Mm-hmm.
These are mistakes that coaches make that are young in their tenure, right?
Game management. That's the thing. It's been, you have not heard the chants that you heard against Mario Cristobal.
Yeah.
Your offense sucks. It's vanilla. It's terrible.
You don't adapt. You can't adjust. You're not well coached.
There's nothing there. The inability to execute in the 4th quarter. It was the same crap over and over and over and over. And anybody anybody could go down there and watch it happen and go, what the hell are you doing?
What Lanning has been too aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
They do a very good job of adjusting in game.
Their halftime adjustments are probably some of the best in the country.
But they got, we can call it spade a spade and say what happened at the beginning of that game. One, UW executed at an insanely high level early in the game, but schematically,
they came out better.
They knew exactly what Oregon was going to try to do offensively and defensively, but the Ducks did adjust. They adjusted to that. And that is a sign of good coaching and stable coaching. Yeah. How games have turned into a route in, maybe it was the Cristobal or Helfrich eras, is when they just sit there and go, no, we're going to keep doing this. And you run your head into the wall. They are a well-coached team. These ones do hurt, and it's okay to have these conversations, but at the same time, if you are blind to the fact that there's a lot of good going on, there's no help for you because there's nothing that can be done. Does it need to be rectified? Do they need to start winning these games? Absolutely. Absolutely it does. But we can also say Jim Harbaugh was about to get fired because he wasn't beating Ryan Day. Now Ryan Day is about to get fired because he can't beat Jim Harbaugh. Like, these are the things, like winning against a rival.
It matters.
It matters. It matters a lot, but it's only year 2.
Yes.
Relax with the, he's in over his head or he can't coach. What are you looking at then?
Because, again, the losses to Washington, 3 points, and 3 points.
Yeah. My goodness.
Look, I think it's entirely fair to ask the question because 1-4 against your rivals in 2 years, not good. But I've been on record since that hire and since we talked to him the first Pac-12 Media Day, I like this dude.
Yeah.
There was something when we came out of that Pac-12 Media Day. You remember what I said as far as the new hires? Him and Jed Fish. Like, there's the 2 guys I'd love to play for. There's something that they're selling. I'm picking up what they're putting down. I like what they've got there. And Lanning has shown me nothing as far as game plan stuff, preparation stuff. Like, if I want to nitpick, it's game management and it's been penalties.
Well,
and I think those are things that you're trying to balance out as far as what you are and who you are, and then ironing out things on the very edges.
Well, and here's the other thing. Here's the thing about both of those. The Pac-12 championship game came down to neither of them. I mean, they weren't an issue.
No.
I mean, penalties were not an issue. I think they only had like 2.
Yeah, and I think they were both on Dante Manning.
Or three penalties because they had a procedural penalty as well. Like, that's not that's not on him. Game management
he was actually very good at the timeout he called before the half.
Well, yeah, in the last 2 games against Oregon State, his end of half timeouts. He has saved his offense enough time to go down and make critical scores that have changed momentum in games completely. You know, I also think that the 2 4th downs that he decided to go for,
right call,
they were the right call. He's not changing his identity whatsoever. Now, we have text that says, can someone please explain an onside kick with over 2 minutes to go and 3 timeouts? Well, I was like, maybe you kick it deep. You had a couple stops. Look at the way the game ended, though. What did Michael Penix do?
Marched him right on down.
Yeah, they picked it up. So you're saying.
And what did he do the last time they played?
We do not want to put it in his hands. We want to put it in our hands. I understand that. I do understand that, but maybe pinning him deep and then kicking the ball deep. That was a guy who, 3rd down throw to Jalen McMillan, like everybody knew where that ball was going. They just ran a quick out. Boom, nothing you could do. He knew his secondary was banged up. Jordan Birch was out, and I think that injury was massive as it pertains to getting a pass rush, making Michael Penix feel uncomfortable. You were missing half of your elite pass rush.
Yeah, the elements weren't there. I look, in the back of his head, you could say you can't play scared or anything like that. It's not playing scared. It's looking across the field and going, that's a Heisman quarterback, and those are 2 NFL receivers. And if we give them an opportunity here, we may not be able to stop them because, A, we don't have a premier pass rusher, B, our secondary is banged up. Even a healthy pass rush and a healthy secondary is having problems stopping that team. How do I know? Because I can go back 3 weeks, 4 weeks ago and watch Michael Penix carve them up.
And see, they hadn't really stopped them all night. So I absolutely understood the onside kick.
Two penalties for 21 yards for Oregon.
Yeah, those are both on Dante, right? No, one was picked up.
Yep.
So you had the procedural penalty, and then you had the 1 PI.
Yep.
Yeah, they played a clean game.
Like, he is. It will take time. It is uncomfortable. It does piss fans off, and that is okay, and that's really good. I mean, that shows that your fan base cares.
You've got to get Washington in the regular season the next time, though, right? Like, you have to. You go 1-5,
or you fire him.
I don't know if you fire him, but I think the seat gets hot.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean,
1-5.
Yeah, I think you'll be okay, but it is okay to be frustrated by it. But if you're pulling the trigger on that, then you're turning it into Nebraska.
I don't think you fire him, but I think the seat gets hot.
Yeah. I mean.
You don't think so?
No. I don't think your seat gets hot. If they're 11-1 and that's their only loss, like this year.
I mean, that was Michigan's story.
Yeah.
With Harbaugh, and they came this close.
And they didn't.
Again, did the seat get hot?
Yeah, but they didn't do anything about it, and that it was like, okay, you're going to go down that road. You're going to go hire Rich Rodriguez again. You're going to go hire Brady Hoke again. Like that is what Michigan. That's what Michigan did to Rich Rodriguez and Brady Hoke, and everyone's like, okay.
On the flip side, when does it then?
When you start losing other games and you can't get over the hump, and you're not in conversations in the final conference championship weekend of being a playoff contender.
Okay.
I mean, like, look, if you lose 8 in a row, yeah, sure, then start having that conversation. But this is way too early. Way too early, especially if it's not the same thing happening over and over and over again. Like, they just got beat in the Pac-12 championship.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
So, speaking of getting beat, 49ers put an epic beat down on the Eagles. When we didn't see coming, we'll dive into that game and more. But first, here's the big Canoa Sports Center update.
I hear they got some tasty burgers.
Now, from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
If you've been arrested for DUI, you need a team of attorneys that you can put your trust into. Call Reynolds Defense Firm today online at reynoldsdefensefirm.com. First on The Fan, we now know the bowl opponents for Oregon and Oregon State. The number 8 Ducks will face number 23 Liberty in the Fiesta Bowl on New Year's Day, while the number 19 Beavers get number 16 Notre Dame in the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl on December 29th. Oregon head coach Dan Lanning says Bo Nix will play in the bowl game. As for the Beavers, quarterback Aiden Childs headed to the transfer portal. He's expected to follow Jonathan Smith to Michigan State. That leaves Ben Gulbranson as the starter against the Fighting Irish. Oregon safety Damon David also reportedly entering the transfer portal, the fourth duck to do so this offseason. He joins receiver Chris Hudson, defensive back Brian Addison, and receiver Ashton Cozart. Oregon State officially announcing former Beav quarterback Ryan Gunderson as their new offensive coordinator, and USC head coach Lincoln Riley announced quarterback Caleb Williams will not play in the Holiday Bowl against Louisville. Bengals at the Jaguars ends Week 13 in the NFL on Monday Night Football, 5:15 kick on ABC and ESPN. Jacksonville running back Travis Etienne officially questionable with a rib injury, but head coach Doug Peterson has said he will play. The Jags are 10-point favorites. Saints head coach Dennis Allen says quarterback Derek Carr is in concussion protocol and also suffered a rib injury in yesterday's loss to the Lions. Multiple reports have the Eagles signing linebacker Shaquille Leonard to a one-year deal. On the hard court, Trailblazers announced forward Jeremy Grant in concussion protocol after leaving Saturday's loss to the Jazz in the fourth quarter. An NBA in-season tournament quarterfinal play begins tonight. Celtics at the Pacers for a 4:30 tip on TNT. That's followed by the Pelicans at the Kings. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Jeff Russ at the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk. Get in the game at Spirit Mountain Casino. Watch and wager on all the pro and college action. Learn more at spiritmountain.com.
Live, local, and free. No subscription required. Portland's sports leader is 1080 The Fan.
Yeah, that was impressive, man. And Brock Purdy, he was in his bag. He looked every bit the quarterback that led that 49ers team to the cusp of going to the Super Bowl before his arm fell apart.
314 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an immaculate 158.3 rating against the blitz. Philadelphia blitzed him, I want to say, 27 times in that ball game, and he was absolutely fantastic.
Look, every quarterback they benefit from having the weapons around them, but nobody more so than what Brock Purdy does.
Which you saw with Deebo Samuel taking a tunnel screen untouched to the end zone.
Deebo being healthy, McCaffrey healthy, Kittle, Ayuk, Juwan Jennings. He's got every single weapon you could imagine. Now that you're getting your offensive line is healthy again, with Trent Williams anchoring your left tackle. Look, this team is just a disgusting wealth of riches that they have there. I mean, it is every single level. It's what the Chargers aspire to be, and the Chargers should be better.
They even have their own Bosa.
This isn't an indictment on the Philadelphia Eagles, though, because it was one of those kind of, if it could go wrong, it did go wrong games for them. The fact of the matter is, you don't turn the ball over at all, and you lose that way. That's rough. But right now, winning in December and early December, I saw, the Patriots absolutely boat race the New York Giants at the end of the regular season, and they ended up winning the Super Bowl against the New England Patriots a month later, right? It's a war of attrition as the season goes on, and the Eagles were very lucky that they won that war of attrition last year. These are the two best teams in the NFL.
I don't disagree.
What happened last night, and look, the 49ers, they had their hiccup where they lost 3 in a row in the middle of the year, and everybody was panicking. And I was like, they're going to be fine. This happens every year with them.
And they'll get
every
healthy.
Year.
They were banged up. They got healthy, and all of a sudden, they looked incredible. And as good as that offense was, 42 points, what's more terrifying is what that 49ers defense did to that Eagles offense. They couldn't do anything.
And Jalen Hurts gets dinged.
Comes back in the game. He went into concussion protocol and was cleared, thankfully. But they couldn't run the ball.
You cannot run, DeAndre Swift was, he was absolutely pummeled in that game too.
More like DeAndre Driftwood.
That hit that Diamador Lenore put on him, just absolutely ass over tea kettled him. That was just kind of the sign of the game. It was San Francisco wanted that game.
Yes,
you could tell they wanted that game, and it was a statement. And in December, we're at the point of the year where that was the marquee game of the weekend. It got sideways early, and then you just kind of sit there at some point and you start looking around and you go, all right, is it worth it to just keep putting ourselves through this? Or do you pull the ripcord and say, we'll settle this in January?
Yeah.
Because I hope we do. Because I don't think you see that Eagles team show up in a playoff game against each other. But I think
this level of 49ers team is going to want to show up there because
absolutely. I think they can do it again. I don't think the Eagles play that
poorly,
sloppy, for lack of a better term.
You can't relitigate last year's NFC Championship game in this game, and you can't win this year's NFC Championship game in this game.
No.
What you can do is win the game that's in front of you, and the 49ers went out there and beat the ever-living crap out of the Philadelphia Eagles in every facet of the game. They were the more physical team on both sides of the ball. Look, a big part of this is the 49ers are healthy, and this is not everything, but Lane Johnson not being healthy for the Eagles was problematic. It just was. That clearly they could not run the ball. Pass pro was a bit of an issue. The 49ers were in there knocking Jalen Hurts around to the point where he ended up in concussion protocol. And I think you just look at everything that happened. You talk about ball security and everything else for the Eagles. That was about the only thing that went right for them.
It was the second half. San Francisco was just this juggernaut. They didn't punt in the second half. They just scored touchdowns. And they forced one punt, and at that point, it was game over. When you come out and you score your first 2 touchdowns of the second half, and you build up, I think it was 28-6 at that point? Or 28-13, because it went, Niners scored, then the Eagles went down and scored, and it was 21-13 at that point. When the Niners scored again to go up 2 scores, and then held them to a 3-and-out, turn out the lights. That was it. Because San Francisco smelled blood. They went down, punched it in again, and at that point, Philly was like, all right, this ain't it for us today.
We out.
And it's smart. Play to live another day, dude.
Because sometimes that's just what you need to do.
I love though that both these teams, because it's going to get salty.
They don't like each other.
If they meet up in the playoffs, and look, Dallas is playing really good football right now. Can their defense?
And Philadelphia is taking on the Cowboys next.
That is going to be a fun ass game. And look,
49ers take on the Ravens next. So you have some.
Well, this is
time games coming up.
We also have to go through that. This is that gauntlet of the season where it was, what is Philly going to be? And everybody's like, oh, how could you not get up for this game? Well, you played the Cowboys, the Chiefs, and the Bills in back-to-back-to-back weeks, and then you get the 49ers? Yeah. No. And then you get the Cowboys again next week.
And then the Seahawks, who
this was a gauntlet. We knew that this was going to be a gauntlet that they had to go through, and San Francisco, all they did was said, all right, challenge accepted. We're going to go out there, and they waxed them in the second half. You could see Philly started to wear down in that second half.
The interesting thing here is for the Eagles, they paid their penance, and then they closed with Giants, Cardinals, Giants.
Yeah. Huh? Now we're talking.
Now you're
Tommy DeVito action.
Yeah, you're playing free and easy down the stretch. Maybe get some guys some rest.
We all agree the Giants just need to start Tommy DeVito forever now, right?
Yeah.
Like that he's your quarterback now, for better or for worse.
Doesn't matter who's back there. It's now Tommy DeVito.
Nah, yeah. You're not putting Pandora back in the box here, buddy. You got to make sure Tommy DeVito's the guy coming out of the bye week.
I don't think there's anything there that you can't not enjoy.
Tommy DeVito?
Yeah.
Well, the quarterbacking part, I think that might be an element of it, but his family's phenomenal. He just seems like he's having the blast out there. He's having the time of his life. Vance Joy, who was not having the time of his life at that time.
Speaking of time of your life, are the Ducks going to have the time of their life against Liberty in the Fiesta Bowl?
Did you guys see that's what was played in Allegiant Stadium as
Green Day?
Yeah. Time of Good Riddance. The name of the song is Good Riddance.
No.
Yeah.
Wow.
What was that in regards to the conference?
I don't know. I mean, the lyrics are far different than just hearing the song title. But,
sure.
Yeah.
Well, do we want to say good riddance to the Fiesta Bowl?
Sure.
All right, we'll do that next. Maybe on Danny Dusty, Today the Fan.
I'd like to say it. So I was like, man, probably not going to see Bo Nix, Brandon Dorless, Troy Franklin, any of these guys that are going to the NFL. But the good news is Dan Lanning in the Verbo Fiesta Bowl presser dropped some great news for Duck fans.
The ultimate competitor. I think visiting with Bo this morning, we were kind of just, reminiscing a little bit about this season. You don't get a lot of opportunities to do that. And we got a little bit of an opportunity to do that this morning as you kind of wait to figure out what's next. But I think it speaks to, his character, what he thinks of this team, what he feels like he owes the players on this team around him. And he certainly doesn't owe anybody anything. And for him to go out there and to go play, I don't think it was really ever a question for him. It's just a matter of, those are things to assess after the situation. I think he took his time to do that and evaluated what he wanted to do moving forward. And I think any of our players that it's not always seen in college football as advantageous for players to go get to play. But you got to remember, you want guys on your team that love to play for the love of the game. And Bo Nix is one of those guys.
That's a cool thing to hear from a coach in this day and age where guys are just backing out of games left and right. And, if you don't make the playoff, it's deemed like a failure of a season. And Bo Nix knows that New Year's Six Bowl is still important. Winning a Fiesta Bowl would be awesome to go out that way. We don't see it very often, but you heard Bo Nix after the game when he was even asked about it, like, hey, I just want to, let this all settle. And everybody's like, yeah, he's not playing. I felt that way. I was like, he's not playing in this game then.
The second I saw the draw, I thought that basically everyone who was either or thinking about transferring or going to the NFL would not play.
Well, no, I'm talking about Bo Nix after the game in the press conference. I was like, when he said that, I was like, mm-mm. And then because of the way that he addressed whether or not he's going to play in the bowl game, we all kind of assumed that he wouldn't be playing in the Fiesta Bowl. And then we didn't hear everything else that he talked about, though, about what it is like to play for Oregon and how much he loves playing for the Ducks and with his teammates and stuff like that. So, when Lanning said, he's playing and he intends on playing in the Fiesta Bowl, I think that was huge for everybody to hear from the fan base, because when you see the opponent, you do think exactly what you said. Like, anybody that has a decision ain't going to do it. They're going to make the decision not to play because why risk it? And I wonder what the final number is going to be on guys that don't play. I don't think it really is going to matter all that much regardless of the opponent, right? Whether it's Liberty or somebody else. I think maybe a guy or two makes a decision not to play because it's Liberty.
Mm-hmm.
But, at the same time, there's a lot of pride to finish this thing off on the right note. Nobody likes to go out with that bitter taste in their mouth. So I'll be interested to see. I'm not a fan of Liberty. Their coach is pretty damn good, though. Jamie Chadwell.
Decent.
But he's been a really good coach everywhere he's been. But nah.
It's an unfortunate situation and something that I look at and go, how did not one of the other teams get picked?
It's because you have to have the
pick.
highest ranked group of 5, and somebody had to play them. And it's just, of course, you feel that way when it's your team and your fan base. For Oregon fans, just at least you're not Florida State, right?
Yeah, at least you're not kept out.
I mean, at least you're not Florida State, 13-0 and not playing in the college football playoff. So this is the last year that they'll have this problem. Next year is a 12-team playoff. So you just got to stay in the top 12. And that is going to be the goal moving forward, because a 12-team playoff this year would have been a lot of fun. And this year, what is lost in this year being so unique is that the committee was put in a bind really for the first time ever like this, because this year it was more wide open than ever. And a 12-team playoff would have been awesome. I hope that this is the future of college football, where it's not just 2 teams and everybody else. I hope it is as wide open where we could have this legitimate conversation of 8 teams vying for 4 spots heading into the final week of the college football season and conference championship weekend. But we're just 1 year too early for that, I guess.
Womp, womp, womp,
It is a big womp womp. It is a big womp womp. I loved what the Big Sky tweeted out yesterday.
I didn't see that.
They said, I'm just thankful for a 24-team playoff.
Wow. I did see somebody else tweet out, hey, if you don't like the way things are going here at the FBS level, just know that there's other systems that are much more functional and reward the deserving as opposed to what people think across all other levels of college sports.
The ridiculous nature of college football, and I don't know why, like there have always been people that are like, no, we can't expand the playoff. Why not? Like, why? They're, oh, God.
That was always ridiculous.
Student athletes will be out of school for far too long. It's like, no, they won't. Have you seen the NCAA tournament? What are you talking about? Like, well, they get spring break. Have you not heard of Christmas break? Like, that's a thing. What are we doing here? And then they're like, wow, well, you can't play these guys in too many games. The national champion in college in the FCS plays 16 games. It's an NFL season. What are you talking about? Yes, you can. You do it literally at another level of football here. It's just mind-boggling to me. And guess what?
Trying to confuse me with the facts.
Only 2 teams play that many games. That's it. 2. Like, it's not like everybody's playing that many games. And guess what? Those guys would die to play in that 16th game because it's the final. It's a championship game. Goodness gracious.
On a side note, gun to your head. Yeah. Would you rather play Liberty or Iowa?